So the VA says let it burn. They're overhauling their entire mental VA rating criteria. And I'm going to show you how this is going to reasonably and actually make a four-figure difference for you every single month. Because if you currently have a mental rating, this could be a big opportunity. Or if you plan on getting rated for a mental condition, this will either be your best friend or your worst nightmare, just depending on how well you know these new criteria. The change is approaching quickly this year, and I'm going to show you exactly how to navigate it so you are safe. Jordan Anderson, VA Claims Academy, let's get into it. So I promised you this video could be a game changer for you, literally to the tune of thousands of dollars per month. Let me not just say that without any backup. Here is some proof just from this week about the current criteria, how that you can use this in order to actually strategize your claim and get the rating that you deserve. These are from our clients. Here's one that has a 100% permanent and total rating. Here's another one, this gentleman, we went from 90 to the 100% rating mark, which is, it's over the four-figure difference per month. And Dr. Norman said I could say his name. Dr. Norman, shout out to you. You've been awesome, 100%. Finally, that's amazing. And another 100 Club member again from this week. This is using the strategy that exists now, okay? So this current criteria, let me show you the difference and how this is going to affect you with these changes and how it could either be a good thing, like I said, your best friend, or your worst nightmare. The current rating criteria for mental health conditions, and when I say mental health conditions, it does not matter to the VA, whether you have PTSD, whether you have MST, somatic symptom disorder, adjustment disorder, depression, anxiety, they do not care. What matters is, do you have a mental condition? Because any and all mental conditions, any and all, get jumbled up into one smorgasbord of a mental rating. So you can't stack mental conditions. I can't say, okay, I have depression and I have anxiety. Let me get two 70% ratings. No, it all gets put into one and one rating criteria. That criteria currently hinges on your level of social and occupational impairment. Put even more plainly, your work and relationships, right? So your job and your relationships. What level of negative impacts do your service connected mental condition have on your job and in your relationships? Here's the challenge with that, right? You've seen, my clients, I work and get great results for my clients with this current rating criteria system, right? But some of the challenges that, especially with vets who aren't familiar and who aren't really well-versed in the VA ratings process can have is you can be out there spilling your guts, right? Talking about how you feel like less of a person, less adequate to your family. You can hardly even take care of yourself, let alone take care of your family. You're diminished. You can't give your grandkids the attention that they need, that they deserve. You're allowing your friendships to fall through. You can have all these things that simply, you would think would qualify you for the 100% rating mark. You're very severe mentally. And you could get the question, they say, can you keep a job? It's like, well, yeah, I have to keep a job. And they'll say, okay, 70% next, right? It's too simplified, right? It's a little too simplified. This is what's changing. The level of social plus occupational impairment is changing with this new criteria, which, by the way, right now the date for this is coming up in August 2025, they're targeting. This is why this video is so timely, because it allows you to get sort of your choice. If you start now, you could get the current rating criteria with the social and occupational impairment. It's the enemy, we're familiar with it, you know how to kind of strategize. Or if you're currently sitting on, let's say, an average mental condition rating, which, by the way, is 70%, that's why this is so important, then maybe you could say, okay, you know what, maybe I'll start strategizing to the new rating criteria because I couldn't get 100% on this old criteria, but in my opinion, it's easier to get to 100% on the new criteria, okay? By the way, if this is helping so far, do me a favor and hit the like button for me. Let's talk about the new criteria. It is a little more complex, but I'm going to simplify it for you, okay? What we have here are 5 what they call domains, right? So this is 5 avenues of your life in which your mental condition could be impacting you. Number one, cognition. So this is things like memory. You forget, a lot of stuff. Maybe you can't even think clearly. You can't focus. Cognition. Interpersonal. So this is more like the social impairment, right? So your interpersonal interactions. It could even be interpersonal interactions in the work setting. So it's a little more broad, right? So it's just talking about how you interact with other people. That's another avenue. Number three, here's an important one, your tasks, okay? Your task completion or your life activities. If you're unable to do your chores, do your routine around the house, or don't get stuck on just tasks, life activities. So even the things that you enjoy. You used to love going out and throwing a lure out at the river, maybe taking your grandkids, but now you just can't muster up the motivation. These are life activities. So even the things that you enjoy to do, if you're not doing them as well or as often, that can be in number three. Two more here. Number four, this is an interesting one. Navigating environments. And internally, we're already preparing. We're running simulations and we're getting weigh-ins from psychiatrists about these criteria because some of it has a human element for interpretation. I'll show you here in a second. But we're preparing already. And one of the fascinating ones to me is navigating environments, because to me, this is something as simple as road rage, right? And when you would tell a veteran who doesn't know any better, and if they ask you at the C&P exam, hey, do you have any trouble navigating environments? 9 out of 10 veterans are going to say no. I can walk just fine from the parking lot to my car. I'm fine navigating environments. But here's why it's so important and to know what you're going into, because this term is so vague that you wouldn't even think that, hey, you know what? Yeah, I have irrationally bad road rage because I was driving a Humvee when I was downrange and there were people getting hit with IEDs, and now I just cannot get cut off without having an irrational, anger. It's about translating your true story into this new criteria, and that takes awareness, right? Going in knowing what to expect. That's why I'm saying that this adding a little more complexity is actually going to widen the gap between those who don't know the rating system. They're going to be even worse off, in my opinion, versus those who do know how to strategize, how to translate their story. You're going to be even better off, okay? Navigating environments, road rage. It could be, just getting from point A to B. What you ever have where you miss your exit because you're just zoned out? You don't even realize that you drove the last 5 miles and you didn't even remember it, right? Things like this. Lastly, self-care. That's the fifth domain, as the VA calls it. Self-care. So are you taking care of your hygiene? Are you wearing yourself out? Are you a workaholic now because you can't stand sitting still, right? That's not good self-care. So these 5 domains all are going to have a scoring system. And what this is going to go from is going to go from 0 to 4. Now, this scoring system is really where I was mentioning that human element, that human factor, where there's a lot of ambiguity that could take place. What the VA says, if someone rates you as, let's say, 0 for cognition, that means that there's really no impact, right? So cognitively speaking, you're sharp as a tack still, you still got your memory, all this stuff, but maybe you have some problems elsewhere. So you would be getting a 0 in cognition, right? 4 means you're totally impaired. In this case, interpersonal, let's say you score a 4, you can't hold down any relationships. Your interactions with other people are a disaster. You can't invite the in-laws over for Easter, things like that, right? You're kind of just hazardous. People avoid you. That would be scoring a 4 on interpersonal. But here's the interesting part. Number 1s, 2, and 3 in between this aren't really defined, right? So it's sort of a subjective scale based on how you voice your true story to your psychiatrist, to your C&P examiner, and also how they interpret that in terms of the severity on this scale. So we kind of know what 0 is. 0 is like, okay, it's really not a big deal. And 4 is, okay, it's totally impaired. You're totally impaired. Self-care, right? You can't even get out of bed to shower very well. What are the ones in between? That's what can make all the difference. And let me show you why. We have 5 different domains. If you score a 1 in 2 or more of these domains, so let's say, again, you have interpersonal, you kind of get agitated with your spouse, whatnot. Okay, they score you a 1. And navigating environments, again, you have a little bit of road rage, they score you a 1 in that as well. So now you're 1 point in 2 or more domains, you would receive a 30% mental rating. Okay. By the way, with the new criteria, there's no such thing as a 0% mental rating anymore. You go straight to 10%. So even if you score a 0 point in each of these domains, you would still receive that minimum 10% rating. So there's kind of the safety net for veterans, again, who aren't really familiar with the VA claims process. So at least there will be, nobody who has a 0% mental rating. But like I said, in my opinion, the people who don't know how to navigate the system and navigate and strategize this system are going to be even worse off than the current VA rating system. Okay, let's move on to the 50% rating criteria. If you're a level 2, again, scoring system goes from 0 to 4. If your C&P examiner weighs in and says, you know what, cognitively, you're a 2, okay? You're a 2. You're not super severe, you're not crazy impaired, but you're a 2 out of 4 cognitively, or any of these. That's a 50% mental rating, okay? So you're jumping up significantly by getting a 2. Now, here's where it gets a little more complex, but in a good way, in my opinion. If you receive 2 points in 2 or more of these domains, let's say interpersonal and navigating environments, you receive a 2, maybe you have a 1 somewhere else, doesn't really matter. In 2 or more, you receive a 2 score. That's a 70% mental rating. Again, that's the average rating for right now. The current criteria, the average mental rating is 70%. But you could receive 2 or more. Okay, you can receive 2 points in 2 or more of these domains, or you can receive 3 points in 1 domain and still get to 70. Okay, so let's say you have 0, 0, 0, 0, 3. That's still a 70% rating. Now, just like with the 70%, a similar sort of tactic is for the 100% rating criteria. And this is why that I think that the new rating criteria for mental is going to be much easier to get a 100% rating for than the current one. Because again, you're not getting that question, well, can you hold a job or not? I mean, come on, right? It's like, so how simple is, okay, yeah, sir, I can jump around and hold jobs, but it's not seeing really what your mental sort of anguish is. And this one does do a little bit better. And this is why. If you receive a 4, again, total impairment in any of these domains, cognitive, interpersonal interactions, maybe task completion, or your life activities, if you're totally impaired with your life activities, you used to be able to do these things, now you just can't mentally. You can't navigate your environments, totally impaired with self-care. That's a 100% VA disability rating for mental. A 4 in any of these gets you 100% just like that. Or a 3 in 2 of them. So either a 4 in 1 domain or a 3 in 2 or more of these domains gets you 100%. Fellow vets, I hope this is helping out so far. Definitely hit that like button if it is. This is massive because you should be strategizing right now based on, okay, hey, I have a 70% mental rating. I've tried to increase to 70% because I know that I really kind of meet a lot of the symptoms of the 100% rating criteria, but they're saying because I can hold a job, that's holding me back. This should be where you are thinking now is, okay, you know what? It looks like I may be able to qualify for a 4 in 1 of these, or maybe a 3 in 2 of these domains. Now I know I'm going to have an opportunity finally for the VA to understand my symptoms and get compensated that 100% rating that I deserved, right? That's where it could be an opportunity. That's what I'm talking about. It could be your best friend or your worst nightmare. Now, for those of you watching, luckily, I don't think this would be your worst nightmare because you're educating yourself on the VA rating system. It's not going to be your worst nightmare for you. It's going to be the worst nightmare for those veterans, again, who unfortunately aren't very familiar with this process, who aren't going to be aware of this process, who think the VA is just going to take care of them as long as they tell them what they're experiencing. That's going to be difficult, okay? Because this is a little more complex. There's a little more legwork that you have to do in terms of, again, translating your true story and knowing ahead of time what the VA is going to want to see from you. There's more opportunities to get it wrong and to really get a low ball rating, okay? I foresee the average mental rating, which right now is 70%, I think there's going to be a lot more 30% and 50% once this changes, okay? But again, for you all watching, I think that you are going to actually have an opportunity here to increase the mental rating even further. So fellow vets, I really hope this helped out. Well, let me go ahead and reassure you of one thing before we part here. If you currently have a mental rating and you're satisfied with your mental rating and you're afraid that these changes are going to lower your mental rating out of nowhere, don't worry. You're safe, you're grandfathered in. However, if you go and prompt an increase, so if you apply for an increase for your VA rating, maybe even if it's not an increase for your mental condition, but they decide to re-examine your mental condition, then you're open up. You're reopening yourself up to scrutiny. And in this case, it would be under the new criteria after those get implemented, okay? So again, if you're just satisfied, you want to do nothing, you want to keep your rating, these aren't going to just all of a sudden you're going to wake up, your mental rating's lower, all right? This is if you apply for an increase or if they just decide to examine you out of nowhere, okay? Want to make sure that you realize that. Fellow vets, I really hope this helped out. Big opportunity for those of you who know, okay, how the system's going to work. So definitely share this video out and hit the like button. Sound off down below with your thoughts. Do you agree that these are actually kind of good changes, or do you think that they might be even worse? I want to hear your thoughts on that down below, and we'll see how it goes. Cheers.